Tesla is seen by many people as being one of the most innovative and disruptive companies in the world. If you're interested to dive deeper, though, than just the usual updates on Tesla, then stick around and you'll want to meet our guest today, who runs a successful YouTube channel called Connecting the Dots. Today, he'll be sharing with us what he believes is Tesla's superpower and greatest strength. We'll also review his amazing theory on Tesla's next generation Model 3 car, which many are calling Highland. It was Dots who pieced together that Ford Motors way back in 1913 had a factory called Highland Parks. Is this a hint that Tesla has made huge advancements in factory efficiency? It's these kinds of theories that he seems to be able to see before anyone else. Originally an aerospace engineer, Dots worked in aerodynamics, then switched to software and systems engineering. He's worked at a lot of large corporations on simulations and leading agile development. Dots wants to stay private for now, so we'll be using an avatar during this interview. Welcome, Dots. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Herbert. It's a pleasure.
Okay, wonderful. Appreciate you. I've been a big fan of your YouTube channel. You have just done amazing, high quality, deep dive reviews that so few in our Tesla community are kind of doing that investigative research that you do. So let's get right off to the very first question that I'm very excited about. You have a theory on Tesla's superpower. What do you think is their greatest strength? You said that nobody talks about this. Tell me more.
Okay, there's a theory I have about Tesla that they have this kind of force multiplier, which means they can do things that other companies do, but they can grow much larger. And to show that, can you please show the first slide that I sent you? Okay, what we see here is a list of companies, large companies. Do you see something connecting them?
Oh, okay. That's something connected. They're all technology companies that they're definitely at the very top there for sure.
The thing that connects these companies, all of these companies had the first mover advantage, which means if you look at Apple, when you go back in time, they were the first company to have a computer with a graphic interface. And if you go to a bit later in time, they were the first with the iPhone and before that the iPod and so on. If you look at Microsoft, they were the first with they had the DOS, the first operating system for PCs and so on. Alphabet, Google, they weren't the first search engine. I mean, most of these companies were not the first in the field, but they were the first to provide a product that was good. The first to provide a good and effective product. So there were search engines before Google, but they had they were the first to have a good one, and they grew to this size. You look at Amazon; they were the first bookstore, online bookstore, and so on. Nvidia with their gaming chips and so on. Tesla, of course, with the electric cars and so on. We can go on and on. You can see, look at the list, and all of these companies had the first mover advantage. And as we can see, they grew to be some of the largest companies in the world. Now, let's move to the second slide. I have a smaller list of companies. They're also younger and smaller. But you see something connecting these companies?
Well, they're all software. They don't sell any actual physical product.
Now, what I want to show here, all of these companies, they have two things. First, they also have a first mover advantage. Uber was the first with ride hailing, Airbnb, the first with room sharing, house sharing, and so on. WeChat, the first messaging app in China, and so on. Tinder, Venmo, and so on. They were the first to provide a good product in their areas, in their respective areas. That's one thing, and that's the same as we saw in the previous slide. But there's also something else in this slide. All of these companies, they would not have been possible, or at least not successful, without the iPhone, without smartphones. Uber, it doesn't help if you can hail a cab when you're in the office and then you go outside and wait for it. That's old style. That's like taxi cab and so on. Airbnb and so on. All of these companies, they depend on smartphones for their operation. And they were enabled by internet, of course, and the smartphone. Now, my theory goes and says, imagine for a moment, Apple was the first one with the smartphones, and that's why they are the largest, they're the most profitable of all smartphone makers. They own about 20% of the market, but 80% of the profits. Okay?
Mhm.
Now imagine that Apple thought forward and said, okay, we have an iPhone here. It's a new tool. It's a revolution. It's a disruption. Let's see what it enables. Hmm. It enables us to open a ride-hailing service. And then Apple would start Uber. It will be like Apple ride-hailing and so on.
Yeah.
And they would say, okay, we can open Tinder and WeChat and so on. All of these services could have been parts
Could have been
of
Apple.
Apple. Now, if you look at Tesla, this is exactly what they're doing. When they started, they said, okay, they had a car, the EV, sorry, and in this case, they went a bit the other way. I mean, it's not that they had batteries and they said, okay, we have batteries. What can we do? Let's start with an EV.
Mhm.
But they started with an EV, realized they need batteries and so on, and they gained lots of expertise in managing batteries and battery packs. I mean, not specifically making the batteries, which they are entering now it seems very successfully, but also just managing battery packs, which is a whole field by itself. So they said, okay, we have batteries. What can we do with this? We can do storage. So they entered storage and said, okay, what else can we do? And there's a bot and so on. I'm sorry, with the car, went to FSD and said, okay, we have FSD, which means we can visualize things, we can see the surrounding, we can understand where the car is and so on and what's around it. So let's take this technology and our expertise in actuators and in batteries and so on, and let's make it the bot and so on. And you see that Tesla, basically, it's entering more and more fields. And all of these fields are fields that are enabled by the huge disruptions that they have. Or I told about the bot, but basically there's also saying, okay, robotaxis. It's something that's only possible because of the disruption of EVs. I mean, you can't do robotaxis with ICE cars, but it's hard to control them. EVs enable this, and the AI enabled this. So they're going into robotaxis, and robotaxis enable later on the robot, Tesla bot, and so on. And they're growing and growing, and they're entering more fields. And this is a real power play. Now, I'm saying a power play because when we looked at the previous slide, there was something that was a bit misleading there. Can you show that slide for a moment? Sorry,
Moving
the
previous to
previous
this?
one? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at this slide, we can see that these companies are much smaller
Mhm.
than the previous ones that we saw, like Apple and Amazon and so on. So we could say, for example, okay, so Tesla is entering solar and so on. So how big will this be? It will always be small compared to
Mhm.
the car business, for example, which all the analysts are just looking at the car business right now, EV business. But this is misleading. These are small companies and they are holding small markets. Can you move for a moment to the next slide?
Yeah.
In this slide, what we can see is the effect of other companies doing what I said about Tesla. And they did this before when they were younger and hungrier. For example, look at Apple. Apple said, okay, we have this iPhone. We can do the App Store or Apple Music, iMessage, iCloud, Apple Pay, Apple TV, Apple CarPlay, and so on. And these are huge business. And if you take these away from Apple, you
Yeah.
just have a smartphone manufacturer like any other one, and they would be fighting for the small change like all the other companies. I mean, they'll have a good smartphone, but not this walled garden, all these force multipliers. So all these were what enabled Apple to be the huge company that they are now, the largest company in the world. And that's because they went into these markets when they were younger. And this is what Tesla is doing. Now, it's not only that. If you look a bit lower in this, can you please
Oh,
return to the slide? Yeah. If you look a bit lower in the table, you can see that Apple. I jumped to what happened with the iPhone, but basically, the iPhone itself was also. They had the iPod and said, okay, we can
right.
use this. We can have this technology. Let's make the iPhone and the iPad. These also are new markets that they entered because they had previous technologies and previous capabilities, which they were the first mover on them. And if you look at Amazon, for example, Amazon's entire valuation nowadays is due to AWS, not their online selling business.
Right.
And this is also something that happens probably, let's say, by chance. They had this opportunity, they realized it, and so on. I mean, it's a smart move by them, but they're having this capability just came because of the necessity they had to have all these servers. But their entire valuation is just because they were the first to enter a market that was spun off their previous business. Now, if you look at Tesla, Invest and Tony Seba and so on, they're rethinking. They're all the time talking about that we are in a time of converging disruptions, like EVs, robotics, AI, and so on, batteries, and so on. All these fields are converging together, and they are enabling lots and lots and lots of new capabilities. It's a junction where all of these technologies converge together. They have a very good stronghold and a first mover advantage on most of these technologies. They're the first one there, or one of the first one. They have an excellent, exciting product. They have a great team there. And when we always say that we're always blamed for being Elon fanboys by saying that Elon plays 4D chess while the others are playing checkers. But this is what we're seeing here, that he's thinking a few steps into the future and saying, okay, we have batteries. What else can you do with them? This real world AI of understanding our surroundings. What else can we do with this? And they're all constantly thinking of new capabilities. Now, they're doing it selectively. For example, they said we're not going to enter airplanes in the near future because they don't want to invest their engineering talent in this field. They have others that they think are more lucrative and leaving the airplanes to others and so on. Maybe they will enter that. But basically, they are converging. And so it's a spin-off of a spin-off of a spin-off of basic technologies that they have. And it's just like saying before that Apple has its valuation because of all these businesses that it's spun off from itself. And it could also have had the valuation of also Uber and Tinder and all these apps and so on. This is what Tesla is doing. Tesla and basically also it's the other Elonian companies like SpaceX and so on. A few years ago, I think a year or two ago, I had this video. It didn't do so well at the time, but I talked there about something like Apple's walled garden. They said there the focus was a bit misplaced. People understood it as if I'm saying that Tesla will go and make a smartphone. My intention, what I said was that when there will be something that will replace the iPhone, the smartphone, then I see Tesla being one of the pioneers in that area. And it should happen, by the way, in the very near future, because there have been too many. If you look at disruptions, they appear sooner and sooner all the time. Like from the first computer to the PC, there were many years. From the PC to the internet or the smartphone, there were less years and so fewer years and so on. And something should replace the iPhone, the smartphone, pretty soon. I see Tesla hopefully being one of the leaders there, or at least joining very soon into the field. And I see them having the possibility to connect all these services, all these capabilities together, which means something like you can, from your, it's not a phone, but whatever thing it is, and it should arrive a long time before Neuralink is ready. Neuralink is the holy grail, but there should be a lot of time before it arrives. But I see them making some kind of unifying device that you control all your Tesla life with it, your HVAC at home and your car, and you'll go through the boring tunnels with the car, and maybe go into SpaceX and book a flight in SpaceX and go to the other side of the world and so on. And all of these capabilities will just go and converge. I mean, I'm going a bit forward, and this is, but it could be very different. I mean, I'm not sure about it. It's just very speculation. But what we're seeing right now happening, let's cut a line here for a moment. What I said about all this connecting the device and so on, and unifying device and so on, That's very speculative and for the future. But what I'm seeing now and is reality, robotaxis or full self-driving, autonomous driving, and the bot. And the bot, very, very soon, it should operate in the factories this year. We already discussed this. And they should have hundreds and thousands and then millions of bots, factories and in factories of other companies in the very near future. And this is a reality. I mean, there's
Mhm.
nothing, there is no technological barrier stopping this. The first companies in the field, and they will be the first one to make a compelling product, which means that they will be the Apple of bots or the Tesla of bots, of course. Friends, they're thinking forward
Yeah.
and multiplying or quadrupling, so on.
Hey there, thank you for joining me. If you can, please consider supporting this channel so I can keep it going. It's a lot of work arranging all these amazing interviews. One of the easiest ways is just to click that join button and become a member of the channel. Thank you very much. Let's get brighter. Yep. So you said quite a bit there. Let's just unpack a lot of that. So first of all, Tesla is an innovation engine. They're an innovation company. That's what they see themselves. So they're all about just continuing to create and build new products. So you were right that if Apple was a little bit more wide, broader thinking, right? Because they were obviously with Steve Jobs, he was very much about focus and simplicity and know what kind of company you are. And they are a communications company. They're they saw themselves as a tech company. They certainly, like you said, moved from PCs to mobile phones to music players and now app stores. But Tesla is not stopping, and they're growing, 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 and they're doing anything. They're willing to move into the next thing. So that bit I grab. The second thing that you talked about was yeah, just absolutely agree with you there that if Apple did not let go of Airbnb or something like that, and or the ride hail services, they decided to do it, they would have won that market. They would have been huge, but they didn't have that ambition, and they should have, like you said. So the thing about the next generation connectivity thing, that part I know you're saying is the future stepping stone before Neuralink, but yeah, I don't see that because he's obviously making fun of the whole thing about putting a headset on your face. He made fun of Mark Zuckerberg about that, and he's talked big about Neuralink. So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun exercise to think about how they might put things together. But yeah, what are the other innovations that you think Tesla's doing? So you obviously talked about robotaxi, we talked about the bot. What other things are they doing that just an example of something that
Okay.
they're not afraid to go into new markets?
Before going to what they're doing, I want to say that of course, he made fun of Mark Zuckerberg with the
Yeah.
goggles and so on,
Yeah.
because these are not a viable solution.
Mm.
What you
Yeah.
need to do, and the smartphone itself is a very good device, a very good solution. Let's say for its time, you have to, as Elon always says, you have to increase the throughput of the. You have to increase the input and the output of the device and so on, the input speed
Yeah.
or
Right.
interface with the device. And basically, there is something really different. It should not be cumbersome like the goggles and so on. By the way, when I saw Apple
Yeah.
showing its new goggles,
Yeah.
which are
Yeah.
hugely expensive, but this is temporary. I mean, all the prices should go down with time and so on. But when I saw them show it, I said, okay, it's not it yet. It's not. It's still you have these cumbersome glasses and so on, but it's a real step towards what we should see in the future,
Mhm.
which maybe it will be something that will beam the screen into our eyes and so on. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how it will happen. But in my video, I just said one ring to rule them all. It should be a ring or something like that, which you can
Mhm.
touch and so on. There are, by the way, very smart rings and so on with very small capabilities. So I'm not seriously saying that this is what they'll do. I don't know. It should be a disruption. It's not something that I can give a solution from just with 5 minutes of thinking, because otherwise I would be running to find companies to do this. But
Yeah.
there should be a huge disruption, because if you just look at the uh, time difference that we have between the iPhone and today, I think in 2007, years after that, that's a very long time. Device very, very soon. I don't know what it'll be, but just statistically looking at things, it's too long before the next disruption or at the verge.
Interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
I think that if it'll be a new field, then just like there is a possibility that it will be initiated by Tesla. I don't think this will be the case. But if there is another company that comes up with it, like let's say Apple came up with the iPhone, then I do think that Tesla will be one of the first to enter that field also, like Samsung did at the time, and provide their solution. But that's really highly speculative. Let's look at nowadays, what we have nowadays. Basically, I don't have any to give, because Elon and Tesla, they are very transparent bot behind, and then showed us, oh, we have a bot. They showed it to recruit AI talent, but they did it right from the start when they only had a human dancer mimicking about and so on, when they only had the idea. But they're very transparent and they show things into the future. So I don't think we have to look and speculate what their next field or their next product will be when we have the bot, because the bot is here and it's the biggest disruption the world has ever seen. I cannot underscore enough. Shout out to James, but basically I cannot underscore enough how big of a disruption this is. It's the first time that freed of labor. The Bible, in the book of Genesis, they say that humankind has to toil their daily labor and so on. That's from the beginning, and until today, we're always living in a society of scarcity, the scarcity of labor and so on. Going forward into the future, and it's not very far away, we'll have bots in them. And I mean, even if you're looking at sweatshops in Asia and so on, bots will become, with time, they'll become so cheap that even sweatshops will buy bots or lease bots to do their work, because it will be much more efficient for them, and so on. Humanity will live on, and that's a whole different story. I believe that we will all have UBI, but basically it will be generous, UGI. It's a whole different, another story, let's put it aside. But basically, this is a huge disruption. You told me that, hey, Tesla is coming up with a new car right now. Besides the CyberTruck and so on, they will come with, let's say, a van or a bus or whatever. I say, yeah, great. I mean, the safety net is bigger, but I'm not building on the safety net, because this disruption is real, and it's about to become a reality in the very near future. So I'm excited about the Cybertruck. Of course, it's amazing, and I'm excited about the Gen 3 car, and all of this is amazing. But the bot, this is the holy grail. Besides, if you say there is the bot and it's a reality, I don't care about anything else. Everything else, my friend there, they talked about the CTO, she said that everything beside this is peanuts or pocket change. And that's true, because everything fails compared to this on a tangent.
You're absolutely correct that the bot is not a tangent. That is the biggest thing in the world. And then you just recently did a kind of a little bit of a sneak peek, saying that you've heard some rumors, pretty confident that this is true, that the bot is already in the factory today, and is actually able to manipulate and use wires. Those are the things that you discovered recently. So there's a lot of things that you seem to be able to get your hands on and figure things out. What's the one thing that you are the most proud of in terms of something that you figured out that others just your name of your YouTube channel is Connecting the Dots, something that you connected the dots on? Which one are you most excited about?
What I spun there, I think it was very forward looking, because we're seeing it right now. We're seeing the mimicking of humans and so on, but B, also the learning through simulations. We saw simulation, a snippet by the Tesla showed in the previous AI day, where you see the bot trying to walk in simulation and gradually walking better and standing up and walking better. And that was something that I imagined and so on. And catching the wires and so on. I'm seeing it happening. We didn't see proof of it, but we will see it very soon.
Tell me about the project Highland. That one is I'm so excited about because I loved your video that you did where you kind of pieced together that Tesla's Model 3, revised Model 3, they called it internally Project Highland. And your video showed that Ford Motor Company in 1913, they had their factory in Highland Park, and that factory was world renowned for its efficiency. And so you pieced together a lot of theories around this. Can you share a little bit more about where you're at with that?
Now, basically, my theory said Ford, when they started the Highland Park factory, it was where they took the Model T and made it from regular manufacturing methods. They introduced the automotive assembly line and they optimized it and perfected it. And after just a few years, the throughput of the factory grew considerably and the prices came down to a third of the original price, And if you look at it, inflation adjusted, it was much more and so on. I said, there's no way that someone like Elon would just use the same Highland for a project without it actually referencing to reinventing the production line. So I said, okay, what happened is, first of all, my first assumption was Highland will be a reinvention of the production line, which we later saw, that they actually later on showed that the Gen 2 and the Gen 3 vehicle, what we call the Model 2, for lack of a better name, it will be basically a reinvention of the production line. And okay, what will this production line have? There was a later video that showed also before the unveiling. I said what they will have, a few things. First of all, they will have what I call the dry factory. What does it mean in dry factory? It will have steer by wire and brake by wire. And why do I say these are dry? Because normally you use hydraulics. And if you talk to people on the factory floor, it's a huge problem because you have to have all these huge drums full of these brake fluid and the transmission and the power steering fluid and so on. And when you fill it, you have to bleed the brakes, which is to take all the air out and so on. It's a bit, it's not very messy. It's automated, but it's very time consuming. And later on, I see proof of that actually happening. Because if you look at the Gen 3 process, the unboxed process, you see that the first part and second part of the car are built separately and then they are joined, which means if you want to connect, let's say, a brake line to the rear brakes, what you have to do, you have to thread this line from the front part to the rear part and with all the fluid in it and so on. And that you do when you have a car that is built together. If you have two separate parts, you can't do that. And if you want to build the second part, and the two separate parts, the front and the rear, and then after you combine them, then you start threading these lines and so on, it slows the process a lot. So I see that confirmation to my theory that it will have a brake by wire and steer by wire. And recently, we also heard somewhere that it should have steer by wire. So you don't have the liquids there. Another thing in the dry factory is that the dry electrode process and so on, we already know that and so on. Basically, I see all of these shortening the production time, the assembly time, and also making it much cheaper to do. Even if the brakes that I showed were the Brembo Sensify brakes, they should be pretty expensive in the beginning. And so on. I think they are also an invention by Tesla, by the way. But these brakes, the brakes themselves could cost more. But if you factor in their assembly into the car, it will be less, and so on. So there will be this the unboxed process. I didn't know about the unboxing, which is a genius. But basically, this process should have brake by wire, steer by wire. I showed a lot of other technologies. I don't remember at the moment, One of the things I also said was I called it the Tierra casting, which means the upper part would be also cast. I do expect that. Sorry, I'm not sure about that, but I do see a way of this arriving in some, at least the smaller ones of the third generation cars. Because if you look at their slide there, they showed a slide of all the combining the parts together. It showed the rear casting and the front casting, and there was another part that said an other casting. I see that at the top, injected together. Possibly it will be from composite materials.
Yeah.
Composite injection, sorry, not wrapping composite materials like with the BMW did, but composite injection. So it'll be much faster and much cheaper in this case. So that was basically my main theory. So the other technologies, which I think will still happen. From that, I also I said, okay, I don't want to leave a few ideas that I have unsaid. I don't, these are really guesses, because about technology, I can speculate. About naming and so on, it's just guesses. I said, okay,
Yeah.
because it's the Model T, Elon will call it the Model, and he can't say it's the Model T. He'll say, okay, this is the Model Tau. The Greek letter Tau looks like T, basically. And I said, okay, it'll be the Model Tau, and then it'll be introduced in Tau Day. Now, this, I said, is a guess. I'd be very surprised if it's true, but by the way, it's not yet over, but I still have a fighting chance, because if you listen to Brian from my Tesla Weekend and so on, he said that basically the revealing is delayed, has been delayed. So there is a chance that they did plan on Tau Day, which is 6/28, June 28th, which is also Elon's birthday. But basically, this is again in the part of guessing and so on. This isn't real speculation. I also said something that because Tom Drew said that he told a small group during Investor Day that they plan to finish the factory in 1 year. But okay, 1 year from now, we still have a chance to get the factory done in March 14th, 24. Said, okay, maybe they're heading for that. So one car will be the Tau and the other will be Pi. But these are just guesses. But basically, if I go back to my main theory, it was there will be a reinvention of the process. And the Highland isn't the Model 2. It's not the third gen.
Right.
The Highland is now. But there are two possibilities. One possibility is that the car we will see that we're talking about, the new Model 3, is not the Highland. They had two separate projects. One of them is the new project, Model 3. The other is the Highland. And the Highland was reinventing and so on, prototype of the new process. But what I do believe is that the Highland is the prototype. The new Model 3 is the prototype of the new unboxed process. It will have some, not all, of its ingredients.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that if you're looking at the new factory, when you build the new factory, you want to know what you're doing. You want to have some experience. That's one thing. The other thing is you want to make your mistakes in a car that is lower volume, like Tesla did his mistakes with the Model S before they went into the Model 3, and with Model 3 before the Model Y. There are smaller volumes. So in this way, Model 3 is lower volume than the Model 2. So they want to have the mistakes there. And also, because Model 3 is more expensive to sell, it has a higher selling price than the Model 2, you have more room to make these mistakes. So you have your more initial margin you can eat if you have a mistake. So if they wanted to prefer in the Highland, just like Highland Park was Ford's prototype of a factory before they moved production of the Model T to the River Rouge plant, which was a giant plant, then Model Highland, the Model 3 Highland is Tesla's prototype before making the unboxed Model 2 in Mexico. It won't have all of the ingredients, but it will have some of them.
I love it. That's great. Thank you so much, Dots. That's so good. I love all the things you've done, all the things you've said today. Thank you. So people follow Connecting the Dots. He's on Twitter at connecting Dots and on YouTube at Connecting the Dots. He's got a lot of these very deep dives and very well produced videos. Love it. Thank you so much, Dots. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Robert. It was a pleasure and an honor. I really love your channel. So
I
thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Okay. Bye bye.